Good morning. This is going to be Objective 7. We're going to do a throwback today to Algebra 1, and we decided to do this lesson because this would be very good for you, especially those that are planning to take the SAT. And you're going to need this as you go into pre-calc and calc. So not necessarily that this deals a lot with trig, but we just thought that this would be a good refresher for you because you're going to need it going down the road. So we're going to take a look at slopes of lines. We're going to look at writing equations of lines and graphing lines. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to find the slope from 2 points. So let me just refresh your memory that there is a formula for this, and the formula says that go back, get my board working. M equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Okay, and so basically what we're going to do is, and we sometimes call this rise, and that's why we're using our y coordinates over run our x coordinates. So we're going to find the change of our y's divided by the change of our x's. So if we set up example 1, and it doesn't matter which y you're going to pick. So you can pick, this is an x, and this is a y, and this is an x, and this is a y. It doesn't matter which one you start with, okay? I'm going to start with the 4, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and throw in my subtractions so then I can just fill in my numbers. And so we're going to subtract 0. Now, so here's what does matter. It doesn't matter which y you start with, but whatever y you start with, you must start with that same coordinate when you pick the x on the bottom. So because I started with the 4, I'm now going to start with the 2 and subtract the 0. Okay? So 4 minus 0 will be 4, and 2 minus 0 will be 2, so that this line has a slope of 2, positive 2. Okay? And that says to us, this is really 2 over 1, because we know slope is a fraction. That means for every 2 that we rise up, so we're going to rise up 2, and then we're going to travel over 1. Then we're going to rise up 2, and then we're going to travel over 1. And so if I graphed that line, it would look something like that. It would have a slope. Okay? So let's look at example 2, and I encourage you, if you remember this, go ahead and hit pause and try this one on your own. So if we fill in M equals, let's fill in our subtractions. Now this time, it doesn't matter which one you're going to start with, so I'm just going to pick random ones so you can see that it doesn't matter. I'm going to start with this 7, okay, this y, and I'm going to subtract negative 4. So be careful on that because the subtraction comes from the formula, and then you have a negative 4. So that will be a double negative. Now if you start with the 7, you must start with the negative 2 and subtract the other negative 2. So 7 plus 4 is going to give us 11. And then negative 2 plus 2 is 0. Anybody know anything about a 0 in the denominator? That can't happen. I agree. It's all fun and games until you try to divide by 0. You cannot have a 0 in the denominator. So when you get a 0 in the denominator, this slope is called undefined. Now remind me, what kind of line would be undefined? What kind of line? And that would be a vertical line. Okay, you cannot describe, this has 0 rise, 0 run to it. You can't describe it. I used to talking in Algebra 1 about skiing. You can't ski down. That's just free fall. Okay, it is undefined. It has no definition to that line. Okay, and just so you can see, this does say 2, negative 5. So in case you can't see that. 2, negative 5, that's the first point, and then negative 4, 3. All right, so if we plug in, so I'm going to start with the 3 this time. 3 minus negative 5 That's going to be a double negative. And if I start with the 3, then I have to start with the negative 4 on the bottom and subtract the 2. So 3 plus 5 would be 8, divided by negative 6. And if we simplify that, that would be negative 4/3. Okay. If we graphed this line, again, does that mean the 4 and the 3 are both negative? No, because that would be a negative over negative, which would be a positive. So the negative goes either with the top or the bottom. So let's put it with the top. So let's make this negative 4 over positive 3. So that means for every 4 I go down, 1, 2, 3, 4, I go to the right positive 3, 1, 2, 3. And so your slope's going to be like this. So your line is falling from left to right. If I look at example 4, so doesn't matter which 3. I'm going to start with the second 3. Minus 3. That means I have to do negative 4 minus 8. So 3 minus 3 would be 0. Negative 4 minus negative 8, you're going to get negative 12. So what is 0? Now, is this the same thing as an undefined line? No, this is not. You can have a 0 in the numerator. That's okay. 0 divided by anything, it's going to have a slope equal to 0. And that means it's going to be a horizontal line. Okay, undefined lines are vertical lines. 0 slopes are horizontal lines. All right, so we're going to look at slope from a graph. So I'm going to do the best I can drawing on this. You'll just have to bear with me. Well, maybe, maybe not. All right. So what we're going to do to find slope from a graph is you need 2 clear points. So I'm going to find 2 clear points. I'm going to use this point. I'm going to use this point. And what we're going to do is we're going to count rise over run. Rise means I'm going to go up first. So I'm going to, if I go up 1, let's see if I can get a pen. Up 1, up 2, up 3. So that's positive 3. If you go up, it's positive 3. If you go down, it's negative 3. If you go to the right, it's positive. If you go to the left, it's negative. So then I'm going to travel over 1. So that's going to be 3 over 1, which would just be 3. So this has a slope of 3. For every 3 I go up, I travel over 1. Up 3, over 1. Up 3, over 1. Okay? You could reverse it if you wanted to. You could go down 3, that would be negative 3. And then if you went left 1, that would be negative 1. So that's still going to end up being positive 3, though. Negative over negative is a positive. So it doesn't matter which point you count from. Okay, we look at this one. Again, you need to pick 2 clear points to find your slope. I'm going to use this point and this point. It doesn't matter which one you start with, so I'm going to start at the top point. To go to the other point, I'm going to go down 1. So if I travel down 1, that's a negative 1. And then I'm going to travel to the right 3, that's positive, or excuse me, right 2, that's positive 2. And if I simplify that, that would be a negative 1/2 slope. And it should make sense, because our line is falling from left to right, that it does have a negative 1/2 slope. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to write equations from the lines. Again, sketch these the best you can. All right, so in order to write an equation, we need to understand y equals mx plus b. And we need to understand that m is your slope. And we need to understand that b is your y y-intercept, meaning where it crosses the y-axis. Okay, so I'm going to use this point and this point, and I'm going to find the slope first. So I'm going to rise up 1, so that's a positive 1, and over to the right 3, so that's a positive 3. So I have a 1/3 slope. So I'm going to put a 1/3 where the M is. Now my y-intercept, where is it crossing the y-axis? So here's the y-axis, and it is crossing right here. Here's where the red line is crossing, and that is at -2. So that means my B is equal to -2. So I'm just going to plug in -2. So there is my equation. Y equals 1/3 x minus 2. And you can try putting that in your calculator into the y equals, and you will see that it's the same line. If you try to put it in and then graph it, you'll see the line that we just graphed. Okay, so I'm going to draw one here. It'd be great if you want to try to hit the pause button and try this one yourself. And let's find our slope first. So we need y equals mx plus b. We need to find our slope, and we need to find our y-intercept. Okay, so I'm going to use this. I'm going to go down 2. So down means -2, and then to the right 1 means +1. And if I simplify that, that means this has a slope of -2. So -2x. And then it is crossing the y-axis. So here's the y-axis. Here's where it's crossing right here, and that is 1, 2, up 3. So that's +3. And so now, there's my equation. Y equals -2x plus 3. Okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to write the equation of the line. If I give you the slope, so we're going to use y equals mx plus b. If I know my slope, that's your m. So I'm just going to plug in. And then I know my y-intercept, plus 3. There's your equation. Y equals -2x plus 3. Pretty easy. So you try that one. So if I plug in, this will be y equals -1x plus 0. My question is you need to clean that up. We could just say y equals -x. That does mean there's a -1 slope, and that it is crossing. Where's it crossing at? It's crossing at the origin. So if I were to graph this, it's crossing at the origin, and I know for every one I go down, I'm going to the right one, down 1, right 1, because this is -1 over 1, down 1, right 1, or you could reverse that and go up 1, left 1, up 1, left 1. So if I graphed it, it would look something like that. And we know it's crossing right at the origin. Almost done. I think we have 13 examples total. Whoops. Let's roll that up. All right. So now we know it has a slope of -2, and we know it's going to cross through 2, 3. Okay? So if you wanted to, you could use your graph paper, and you could plot over 2, up 3. Remember, when you plot points, you go x and then y. And if we know it's going down 2 and right 1, or I could go this graph, it could go up 2 and then left 1, and then up 2 more and left 1. You could, if we know the m is -2, so -2x, and then we've got the mx plus b. You know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's going to be +7. Okay? That's one way to do it. Okay? There is a formula, and it's called the point slope formula. If you would like to write this down, that you can use. Y minus y sub 1 equals m times the quantity of x minus x sub 1. Okay? So we're going to plug in right here. We're going to plug in our slope. and then we're going to plug in the x. Okay, this x and this y are going to stay x and y. So if I plugged in this would be y minus, what's my y coordinate? My y coordinate is 3 equals my slope, which is -2, times x minus 2. And then you could just kind of rearrange it a little bit. Y minus 3, I'm going to distribute -2x plus 4, and then I'm going to solve for y and move this over, so y equals -2x plus 7. So again, you can either do this by the formula, or you could do this by graphing the point and the slope and trying to find your equation. Okay, if we keep going, this one's probably going to be easier with the formula just because it's a fraction. That's when the graph's really good when you got nice, easy integers. But when you have fractions, it's probably going to be better to just use the formula because it may not always come out very pretty. So y minus, now you got to be careful, this is y minus -5 equals -7/2 times x minus -3. So this would be y plus 5 equals -7/2 times x plus 3. And then you're just going to work it out. So I'm going to distribute. This is going to be -7/2 x. Here the 2's cancel, so that's just going to be -7. And then I'm going to move this over and subtract 5, so y is equal to -7/2 x minus 12. Okay, 2 more. Really quickly. And I may just get through one. I think I'll just do one and cut it off here. So now I'm going to give you 2 points. Again, you could graph them and try to find your slope and then try to find your y-intercept and figure it out that way. What I'm going to start with here is I'm going to start with finding the formula and using my slope. So let's find our slope first. So 3 minus -2 and 4 minus -1. So that's going to be 5/5 because these are plus and plus because they're double negatives. So now we know it has a slope of 1. So now we've got our slope and we've got points, slope, points, slope. It does not matter which one you use. Let's just go with the point slope formula. And I'm going to use 4, 3. So y minus y sub 1 equals m times the quantity of x minus x sub 1. So y minus 3 equals 1 times quantity of x minus 4. Again, either point would work. Okay, you just pick one of them. So y minus 3 equals x minus 4. And when I move this over and add 3, y is going to equal to x minus 1. Okay, so I'm going to leave you there, and we'll practice when we get back to class.